So a little bit more about process mapping, some highlights, some things that are important, and then we're going to jump into one type of process mapping called Swimlane that we use very, very much. Okay. So understand, we talk about this, right? The process mapping is about understanding what actually is happening now. So these are kind of interesting questions to ask. So what specific tasks are being performed? What resource or systems are being used? Who are the customers? Where does it go to? What is the next step? What are the decisions? How you make the decisions, right? Who made the decisions? And sometimes you need to dig into that because people kind of sometimes have some difficulty to explain their decision process. It's just, oh, I click here and then I decide and then that's it. And I say, okay, but how do you do that? And how do you decide which ones? And what's the order? And those sort of things, you need to go and dig into that so you can understand what's going on and where are the weights and where are the delays in the process. So important question to ask when you're doing some process mapping. And understanding that there's tons of different process in a company, and you're just taking one of them and you break down into a bunch of different steps, right? So you would not, you would never do the process map of everybody's process in the organization, right? You're taking a little bit of steps into that uh, a process there, and then you're looking at detail those steps to see the relationship between them. But you have to realize that there's small part of a big organization. There's many things going on, many interactions that you're never going to find out that are happening at the same time. Okay, so that's kind of what this drawing is all about. And this is a kind of an example of a simple process map. So, you have the process steps, and sometimes you can use like numbers like one or two to connect them. This is a simple process map, a flow chart, right? And you guys can read it more carefully. Remember, we have the process steps here in the rectangles, and we have our decision points as diamonds, yes or no questions, and you have a start and end of process being this sausage like or pill like uh, drawing icon here. Another type is called process chart. The process chart is usually done in manufacturing environments. Is just to understand the different steps, but then categorize them into these 4 or 5 symbols here. So you have an operation, a transportation process, an inspection, a delay, or a storage. So we have the symbols here, and you're describing this case how to assemble a hamburger process. You have this process steps here. You have the distance in one column, the time in another column, and you're classifying into what it is, right? If it's a operation, then here's a transportation operation again. Here inspection. Here is the transportation. So here is the storage. So you can have kind of different classifications, and this is used most of the time to find waste in the process, things that don't add any value to the process, like transportation and delays or stuff like that. So that's one kind, and rarely used in a capstone project. But this is the one that we used in almost 100% of our projects, and called the swim lane diagram. So it is a process map flow chart like the other one, but the difference here is you're dividing into lanes. So it's a swim lane because it's a swimming pool lane, right? And here you have the different lanes, and everyone, yeah, and I can draw the person here like is swimming in its own lane, right? So what this does is basically we divide the lanes into departments or areas or people that are involved, and then whenever the process goes to another area, you can see it clearly, right? So in this one, this could be one area, this could be another one, this could be another one, but you're not seeing. So the advantage here is the process don't change. It's just you're organizing it different, so you know who is doing what, and especially the handouts from one department to the other, right? And that's what uh, most of the time you have the problems with the information. I send you one thing to another area, and it took 2 or 3 days for that area to actually pick it up or to review or to look at it. And you have like this miscommunications or delays that happen between areas there, right? So that's why the swim lane is much more efficient in a way to visualize who is doing what, and also to see the problems that are going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and say, why are we doing this? Why is this happening? And then try to streamline the process and reduce the handouts of the process steps. And here we have the example from Capstone Project. So we did a warehouse outbound process swim lane. This is the so we looked inside a warehouse, a company that produced golf carts, and it was the outbound shipment. So whenever they have a warehouse outside the plant, and the plant, whenever the plant needed a part, they send information to the warehouse. It was managed by a third party, another company, and they were having a lot of problems with this other company. So we went in and mapped the process, and we were looking at the inventory accuracy actually. So the outbound is just going there, picking the product, and shipping to the plant, right? And here you have a Swimly. You have the admin that had received information. You have the outbound distributor. You have a Raymond driver, which is the name of the forklift, another forklift truck. And here we color code, so it's kind of easier to see what are the steps, who's doing what are the answers, and so forth and so on. It's usually a good idea to divide if it's too big. So you can see this one, it's divided by one, two, three different parts. And then you can zoom into those parts in the next slide, right? So what I usually tell my teams to do is to have like a big map at the beginning. So you say, "Whoa!" People are kind of uh, a little bit worried about, wow, I didn't know that it was so complex. We had a BMW project with more than 150 process steps, actually. So it was a huge process map, and you say, well, this is huge, this is very complex. I didn't know it was like that. But then you break down into separate areas there and say, this is we're going to talk about this first and this first, and then. It's a better way to visualize, and that's what this thing is showing.